Heated rivalry or premeditated crime? Violence mars the start of the Euro 2016 football tournament. We ask if hooliganism has reached a whole new level in the sport. Also on today's program, the fight against Daesh in Iraq. What hopes for the Iraqi government to recapture Fallujah and then Mosul, and at what price? And in Picture This, the gaming revolution, tech giants unveil the latest in virtual reality. Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. Punches thrown, chairs hurled, pitched battles on the streets. Not the usual experience for tourists in France. But this is what football fans have been up to at the Euro 2016 tournament. Hooliganism in football isn't new. English fans have caused trouble at matches since the 1970s. But what began as drunken confrontations with police in Marseille on Saturday has transformed into something far more sinister. French prosecutors accuse Russian supporters of being well-trained and well-prepared for ultra-violent action. So is there more than just football rivalry at play? Our Newsmaker today is Football Hooligans, as we ask what's motivating the violence at the Euros.
As soon as the final whistle went, you quickly saw a large gap appear between this large contingent of Russian fans and England fans in the same stand. There was some flares set off earlier in the game, but everything seemed to be peaceful until the final moments, and then the Russian fans just rushed past volunteer stewards and attacked England fans in the stand who were just trying to find any way to get out.
Rivalry was expected at the 2016 European Football Championship, but nothing like this. The streets of Marseille became a war zone as England and Russia fans clashed even before the opening game. Reports suggest nearly 300 Russian fans marched towards central Marseille. Their intent made clear by this video posted online by a Russian rioter. England fans were caught fighting too, with French riot police just a day earlier. A concern for a team and country trying to shed its reputation for violent hooliganism.
I'd like to ask the fans, please, if you don't have a ticket, don't travel. And for the fans with tickets, be safe, be sensible, and continue with your great support for the players.
Both the England and Russian sides have been warned by UEFA to stop the fighting, but Russia is under particular fire. Geared up in bandanas, martial arts gloves, and mouth guards are the Russian hooligans, a new breed. The English are blamed with starting the hooligan culture 30 years ago. Football, drinking and fighting was almost a sport in itself. But it inspired a new generation of football fans in countries like Poland and Russia who are now said to be competing with England fans for toughness. While it's unclear who provoked the scuffles, Russia's been criticized for its mixed response.
I'm not going to say that they're professionals of violence, but they're extremely disciplined. They decided in Marseille to very quickly carry out these acts of violence.
A Russian MP even congratulated the Russian fans for their behavior, tweeting, "Don't see anything wrong with the fighting fans. On the contrary, well done to our boys. Keep it up." Most fans at this year's Euros have stayed away from violence. The majority are having a good time. But French police are beefing up their numbers in fear of more violence. Hanging over the Russian fans is the threat of their team's expulsion should fighting erupt again. An unfortunate precedent for a country playing host to thousands of football fans for the 2018 World Cup. Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now to discuss what's behind the bad behavior is Alan Moore in Moscow. He's a Russia sports specialist and global brand director for BOSSNA. And in Leicester, we can speak to a former member of the Baby Squad gang, Riaz Khan. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Riaz Khan, let me start with you first. So these guys have had their football association fined, and there's the threat of their teams, or their team rather, being evicted from the tournament. Is that going to help in any way? Are some of these guys going to think twice about causing trouble, Riaz?
To be honest with you, I don't think there are many troublemakers out there from England, because there's 3,000 fans that have been banned from going to Europe. So I think it's basically, it's not hooliganism. I think it's basically defending themselves. I don't think there is, there's a small, very tiny minority of hooligans out there at the moment. And I think it's just drunken behaviour, that's all it is. I don't think they're hooligans as such. And basically, I think they will realise that they will be banned, England will be banned from the games, and I think they will calm down. But the thing is, I think they're not the aggravators here. I think they're the defenders.
For a lot of people looking at this from the outside, Riaz, it seems as if English hooligans are bad, but perhaps Russian hooligans are worse. Is that the way you see it as well, Riaz?
Well, the hooliganism in Britain died out 20 years ago. The whole scene kind of fizzled out. There's still elements of it, very, very tiny elements of it in England, but it's not as rife as it used to be 20 odd years ago. So people have moved on. I mean, what happened in Marseille, the Russian hooligans, the paramilitaries, I like to call them, because that's what they were paramilitaries. They attacked scarfers, normal fans, and women as well. I mean, they saw England flags, they rushed in and thinking they were England hooligans when they weren't English hooligans, they were just normal fans. And to be honest with you, I think it was just, there's a code of contact, a code of sort of rules of engagement. You know who the hooligans are, and you fight each other. You don't fight normal fans. And looking at the videos and things I saw normal fans, because casuals or hooligans, they dress a certain way, they have a certain uniform, and those people that were being attacked were not casuals, they were not hooligans.
Alan Moore, is Russia exporting football hooligans?
No, I mean, it's lovely to live in a world where there is no more hooliganism. I mean, we've seen it from, the 70s, 80s. I mean, he himself was a part of a gang. He understands what it is. Luckily, he's rescued himself from it and sort of, got on to be extremely productive member of society. But no, I mean, it was lovely where the French police apparently provoked English fans. We believe that they made them sing songs about the IRA, about German bombers, about Daesh, about ISIL. So I mean, the English fans looked for an excuse, as they've been doing since I mean, I've been attending football games from the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, we remember back 28 years ago in 1988, where I was only a lad, a wee bit younger than now, and I mean, the European Championships in Germany were literally brought to a halt with English hooliganism. The thing of code of conduct and so on, I don't know if that works anymore. I mean, it certainly didn't work in Dublin in 1995 when apparently provocation from bench seating in Lansdowne Road caused English hooligans. I mean, I guess Fiaz would know better than I would, why they did that, but it was a planned assault.
Okay, so let me ask.
Can we say that the Russians are bringing it to?
Yeah, hold on for a second, Alan. So I just want to go. I want to go back to Riaz. So Riaz, you're saying this is dying out. Alan Moore's saying these guys are singing songs about the IRA and about Daesh and are provoking French police and others, and that the hooliganism is very much alive from the English perspective.
Maybe they were, because I wouldn't say it's very much alive. Maybe they were provoking, maybe they were singing all these songs. I wasn't there, so you hear things from the media, but the media, how the media play, they play one-sided, don't they? Maybe they're aggravated by the Marseille youth there, because the youth there are quite rowdy as well in Marseille. I mean, they don't take no rubbish. They actually defend themselves, and to say that, to be honest with you, it is a dying culture. I mean, people still wear the same clothes, they wear the sort of designer clothes, and they do go to the matches, but they don't go out looking for it now, because it's too much hassle now. You get put in jail for it, you get banning orders, there's loads of things that could happen to you if you get caught fighting. You could lose your job. So I think there's more to it than that, to be honest with you.
Okay, so Alan, let's look at the Russian official response here, right? Because from the English, you have Wayne Rooney, Roy Hodgson and others, all the sort of self-flagellation and saying, we're so embarrassed, please don't do it, etc. On the Russian side, things are a little bit different, right? So fair enough, Vitaly Mutko, the sports minister, called the hooligans a disgrace. But Igor Lebedev, the MP, tweeted his support, praised and applauded the fighters. There seemed to be more than a little encouragement from the official position. So does Moscow really want to crack down on hooliganism, or is it enabling this hooliganism?
Well, I mean, it's good you bring it up because you gave two great examples and really impassioned speeches that Riaz, and I mean, I really admire. I like Wayne Rooney not just because he's of Irish ancestry, but because he's a good guy in a way. And both he and Roy Hodgson spoke and said, "Look, stop it. Come watch football. That's what it's all about." Leonid Slutsky, the Russian coach, and Artem Dzyuba, the centre striker, centre forward, they both spoke again. Said, "Do not carry on." Of course, they did it in Russian, so many in the English media wouldn't have picked up on it. No, there are, let's say, I can't put it other politely than people who are looking for attention. I would call them in some ways inadequate, that are looking like a certain MP that you just mentioned, who really has done nothing good for football. And just to go back, Riaz himself, I mean, I love what he's been doing in Leicester. And it was at the end of the season, Riaz, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned about that
Thank you.
there were Asian players in the Leicester team, that there'll be more Asians come to the ground. This is an issue in Russia where clubs are not listening to fans. They never have listened to fans. They are afraid of it. So in terms of stamping out unruly elements in Russian football within clubs, at the club level itself, it's just really not there on a broad scale, as it is in England, for example.
Okay, interesting point. We spoke to Alexander Sprigin, the founder of the Russian Supporters Union. We had a chat with him. We got it translated over the phone. Here's a taste of what he had to say to us. Listen to this, gentlemen.
There is a history of bad behaviour the English fans have had for tens of years. They prevented their own teams from playing in UEFA. But Russians are supported in their homeland. Many respected people are defending our boys. Vice Speaker of the Duma Lebedev and Markin, the head of the Russian Investigative Committee, are among them. Most of the Russian fans are martial artists. They are physically well trained. It is Russian culture for fans to go to a sports club and live a healthy lifestyle. They do not drink alcohol. It would be cruel to say, but English fans are fat and paunchy and are like punching bags for the well-trained Russian fans. There is no need to say that English fans are innocent, and out of nowhere that they are attacked. If they provoked the Russian fans, they got the answer, which apparently they were not expecting.
So Alan, you heard that, right? And I think of the subcultures, right? So you have the English lads who are these sort of chubby guys fueled on beers and sausages and tikka masala. And then you have this guy saying, the Russians, we're fit and we train, and the English are fatties, basically. And, we're proper fans. When you hear that, what do you think, and how representative is that view from the Russian Supporters Union?
Well, look, there's just one word, and that's embarrassment. I mean, it's not representative of the country. It's not representative. It's like saying that that normal English people. I mean, I have English relatives that they would stand outside a pub throwing bottles at police and singing songs about the IRA and German bombers. It's not representative. The thing that really has annoyed me in this situation is the kind of this whataboutery. And by that I mean, well, we didn't start it. What about this? What about this? The behaviour of the Russian fans, it's indefensible. I'm not going to say, because English fans booed the Russian anthem and so on. Look, that happens all the time. I've been in a boxing ring and the Irish national anthem being booed. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to fight, but I fight the guy in front of me. But this just does not make sense. This kind of rhetoric, it is ramping up, and it is a little bit of a problem where since the start of the year, really since the whole Sharapova scandal broke, that Russians have more and more felt themselves under this kind of pressure. There's more discontent, and I'll give you just a very, very simple example. The last game of the season, I was at it with my partner and son. He's 6, and it was with Lokomotiv Moscow and a team that was about to be relegated, Mordovia Saransk. There were more police on duty than there were fans. There was a protest by home fans who do not want the president in place, as in the club president in place, and they were treated very unfairly and very roughly by the local police. And there was this kind of air of tension and brutality that just was completely unwarranted. Because the majority of fans are just staying away from stadiums. People are afraid. I'm probably one of the few Westerners here, like foreigners living in Russia, who will with pleasure go to a football game and bring my little guy, simply because I'm not afraid. I'll go to the right section and so on, but there is that fear that these guys who have nothing else to do but like soup up on steroids and go beat each other up in the woods and want to try and be heroes, then are trying to export it. The most downloaded English-made film, second most downloaded English-made film on VKontakte, the Russian social site, which is kind of the Russian equivalent of Facebook, is Green Street.
Yeah.
So, when you've got this, they're aping the apes. They're trying to be like these guys who they see that were so hard and so tough. Burberry has died out a wee bit in Russia, especially when girls started to wear it. So the hard men didn't want to wear it, but they're trying to be this kind of like tough element. And when you hear from the head of the fans association, who doesn't represent the fans, doesn't represent fan clubs across the country, but has been self-appointed, it's painful to listen to. Right. And as a lover of sport, and it makes my blood boil.
Yeah, and sparing a thought for those French police, the country's on high alert due to a very legitimate and real Daesh threat. And they've been diverted to deal with all sorts of nonsense with these fans. You don't want the police to be dealing with football hooligans when there's a Daesh threat, but there you have it. Alan Moore and Riaz Khan, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Still to come on the Newsmakers, how Daesh can be beaten in Iraq. We'll get the perspective from a former US colonel. And in Picture This, how virtual reality is transforming the world of gaming. Iraqi forces have an ambitious goal this year: to flush out Daesh from their stronghold of Mosul. Operations have already begun to retake villages south of the city, while a much bigger offensive has been launched to retake Fallujah, closer to the capital. But combating Daesh is an enormous undertaking, even with the backing of US-led airstrikes. There are a number of complexities on the ground, as Nicole Johnston reports from northern Iraq.
Over the last year, the Iraqi army, slowly but surely, has been battling Daesh to recapture major cities from the group. First was Tikrit, the hometown of Saddam Hussein. Next, Ramadi. The latest battle is for Fallujah. And eventually, the biggest offensive of all will be to take back Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, home to 1.5 million people. But to succeed in Fallujah, Iraqi forces need the support of the Sunnis of Anbar province. Without it, Fallujah could slide back into the hands of groups like Daesh, who exploit Sunni anger and frustration with the Shia-led government in Baghdad. Iraq has been here before. In 2005, when the Al-Qaeda insurgency was tearing the country apart with suicide bombings and attacks, a coalition of Sunni armed groups rose to Iraq's defense. They were called the Awakening Council, or Sahwa. They're also known as the Sons of Iraq. The US paid them to fight, and at its peak there were 100,000 fighters. And working with coalition forces, they defeated Al-Qaeda. 10 years later, a new generation is being trained. This time the enemy isn't Al-Qaeda, but Daesh. In northern Iraq, men from the Nineveh plains around Mosul with no battle experience have been given weapons. Once Fallujah is secured, Iraqi troops will be redeployed to the north, and the battle for Mosul will begin. There's one more major group to be reckoned with in Iraq, and that's the Popular Mobilization Forces, or Hashd al-Shabi. These Shia fighters are battling Daesh, providing security in Baghdad and surrounding the outskirts of Fallujah. They were established by Shia clerics a week after Daesh stormed into Iraq. They're trained and equipped by Iranian-backed militias. However, Amnesty International has accused them of human rights abuses, carrying out revenge killings against Sunnis after liberating towns and villages from Daesh. The Popular Mobilization Forces deny it. They are now backed by the Iraqi government. It's made them an official force and pays their salaries. As the influence of the Hashd al-Shabi grows, Iraq's battlefield is becoming crowded and ever more complicated. Nicole Johnston, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now to discuss Iraq's complex battlefield and the latest offensive on Daesh is retired US Army Colonel Tony Deane. He's the author of Ramadi Declassified and joins me from Boynton Beach in Florida. Thanks a lot for joining us. If recapturing Fallujah or Mosul from Daesh takes place with the killing and possibly ethnic cleansing of many Sunnis, is that a price worth paying?
I don't think so, because once the Daesh is gone, much like they rose from the ashes of Al-Qaeda in Iraq from 10 years ago, a new group will form in its place until there's some sort of political accommodation in Iraq, in my mind, between the Sunnis and the Shia.
What advice would you give to those involved, the Iraqi government and its allies, in order to achieve sustainable success here, to defeat Daesh, but to ensure that something worse doesn't rise up later on?
Well, if you look, the Sunnis in Iraq, in my mind, have lived under Al-Qaeda first and now Daesh, and they have suffered more violence than probably any other group. Although those groups are Sunni, they've been oppressing the population. And if you want to solve this problem, you got to look what has worked, and that's when there was some political accommodation in Iraq and a joint Sunni-Shia government, Kurdish government. And until there's that reconciliation between the groups, this war will just keep going on in different iterations and different names, but it will continue.
Tell me how difficult it would be to take Mosul from ISIS, given the terrain and given the nature of the city as it fits into the country.
Again, my experience was in Ramadi, and we were very successful in 2006. And if you think back, Al-Qaeda in Iraq had declared Ramadi the capital of the caliphate. And we took the city back, but we did it by enlisting the population, enlisting the tribal leaders in the awakening. If you look what happened when Ramadi was taken back this last time, a year ago or so, the city was leveled. So it will be a major fight, door to door, street to street. And then the question is it worth the cost? Will there be a city left? And until, to me, the people in Iraq, especially the Sunnis, are caught between the terrorists, which are the devil they know, and a government that they don't see representative, and the devil they don't know.
Colonel Tony Deane, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. In today's Picture This, gamers around the world are flocking to LA for the opening of this year's Electronic Entertainment Expo. Let's take a look. And that's all from today's program. Our newsmaker today was football hooligans, as we asked why France has seen so much violence at the start of the Euro 2016 tournament. English and Russian fans have fought pitched battles on the streets, but there are questions whether this was simply heated rivalry. French prosecutors accused the Russian group of being armed for ultra-violent action. Well, you've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.